Cedar. Who are you?
Well, look what you have done, I say, look.
Who is that woman?
Minneapolis-St. Paul International Film Festival brings to us every year more than 250 different movies, film and shorts from around the globe. But one movie I choose to talk about today, it's a wonderful movie. It's a fable. It's a love message to all love relationship, and it is really a wonderful film by a wonderful director. He is our guest today, Barry Morrow. He is a Minnesota native, and he is with us today talking about Smitten, this wonderful, funny, uh, just a cute movie. Let's all meet Barry and talk to him about how he came up with this idea and how he cast it in Italy. Tell us a little bit about the idea itself, the inspiration of it, and how did it come about? You've been in business for, said, 40 years. Now you decided to direct a film, and then you came up with a film that is almost fable or cartoonish or almost just, you get the feeling that you will have so much fun making that film.
Well, if you were to talk to the cast and the crew on this film, they said almost to a person that they'd never been on a film set that had such a light, airy feeling. Usually making a film is like being in combat. It's it's the long hours, grueling hours. Many, you're tested not only by the elements, or by your own imagination, by things that break, the weather that doesn't cooperate, all of this. And yet we kept this feeling, this light, airy feeling, simply because I think everything was grounded in the themes of this movie, which, as you say, are all the different ways in which we experience love. Love is generally a very painful thing to go through, because once you fall in love, you become vulnerable in a way that you never were. I experienced this most heavily when the day my son was born. I left the hospital. It was a very hot summer day in Minneapolis. He was born in downtown Minneapolis. And I walked out of the hospital to go make phone calls. I had my pocket full of dimes. I was going to go to the payphone and call my parents and my in-laws and my friends. And I floated down the sidewalk. I had an almost out-of-body experience. The joy of having this making a life, a child. And yet, at the end of that day, I felt very, very vulnerable. We have to prepare ourselves for loss when we set ourselves up for love. And love is hard. I tried to make it as difficult as I could for the four characters who are smitten. And as you know, one falls in love with a very homely woman, which is my way of saying love is blind to beauty. What is beauty? Love transcends anything as ridiculous as one's appearance. Another fellow falls in love with, and this isn't to everyone's liking, but the most beautiful looking man. And I must say, when we cast this fellow Giulio to play the part of the lover, Bambo, I must say, this was the most exquisite looking man. I think if you read the press kit, you'll see a statement I made, and I stand by it. Of all the things I did in this movie, from writing it to directing it or anything else, I'm proudest of having assembled this cast. They didn't really need that much help from me, frankly. They each knew their roles, they loved the roles, and it was just a matter of keeping our focus on this theme that everyone deserves love.
Also you talk about cast. You didn't go for big names. The Rain Man was big names. Put there in the mid. But this is like the people like you. I feel like you met him for the first time, and blind love. This idea has been used, but the way you used it, I mean, I started the film, and here is the priest. It's like a lost soul, and he was saying the most wonderful thing. First of all, he's blind, so he represents love. Love is blind. We heard that so many times. But coming from a priest, that at the end of the movie, I don't want to give it away. Now I know why you choose that priest to be. He was a bit blind, and it was amazing. That's why I was reluctant to finish the film and come with all the questions or answer. But that particular end of the film, I let the people enjoy that. But tell us a little bit about making the choices. They don't come spontaneous, and those are in a way you took us from New York and corporate and digital world to a very analog world. There's no technology, nothing works except relationship and love.
The only representation of the modern world is a cell phone that the
Didn't work.
character who finds it doesn't understand it, and in fact doesn't want it intruding in her life. So it's an homage to many things. It's homage to gentler time, a kinder time, maybe a time that didn't exist, in a place that the setting is so extraordinarily beautiful that it transports you right into a real life fairy tale. The making of the movie in this village where we shot, and by the way, we hired the local cook to be our caterer, the farmers' children to be our production assistants. If cows would be in the shot, we'd have to get a farmer to come and herd them away or bring them in if we needed them. It takes a whole village to make a movie in the case of.
And that village is like they were lost until they found those three musketeers, those two morons, and also
Yes.
those guys that were also lost. It's like two lost people. They found each other.
Yes, well, there's a scene, if you remember, where two of the love pairs are chasing after each other in the hay or in the field, right? It's slow motion. There's music. You've seen this scene 100 times. It's in the Hallmark greeting cards and
Yes.
in this. What makes it funny is the unexpected, which is watching this scene is the absolutely dumbfounded, perplexed uncle of this very homely woman who can't believe there's a man chasing after her with just bubbling over with love, and his mouth is.
Yeah, that film itself, an autobiographical of you, of your life, of what do you find yourself in it when you write?
Well, when you're writing a character, you inhabit them. You have to. And it's a funny sort of schizophrenic thing that you have to juggle in writing. You have a dialogue, say, just between two characters, and as you said, you want as much contrast as you possibly can because there's more to misunderstand. There's more. I can actually tell you that the genesis of the story, a newspaper obituary that I had come across in a small village in Italy, where a woman who died in her 90s had left her estate to this little village that had an ancient cottage where when she was a young woman, she made love for the first and only time with her young boyfriend who was a soldier, who then the next day went off to war and never returned. She never married. That was her love. She waited for him to return her whole life. He never did. And when she died, she left this
Obituary.
largesse of money so that this village would every year be able to have a festival of love. And that was her motive. Just she wanted to honor love itself because it was what sustained her. When I read that, I thought, oh my goodness, what a long story of unrequited love. And yet, she never abandoned it. Like the cottage, she wanted it to be embodied with human souls, thus a festival. I looked into it. I went to this little village. I found the mayor. He told me what happened. The money was in Rome. They went to get it, and the lawyer had run off with the money. And they returned to their village depressed, heartbroken, angry, bitter. And this feeling descended on this little village. That's the curse. And I said, how do I lift the curse? So I have to have the festival of love for her, this deceased woman who was a living, breathing soul. I can fulfill her dying wish through a movie. Well, we learn our values from our families, our parents, I think, mainly. And I grew up in St. Paul, and it was a very, it was a quiet, simpler time. Highland Park was my village. You walked everywhere, you rode your bicycle, you left it unlocked. It was a very kind and gentle time in which to grow up, and it was not hard to know your friends, your neighbors. The old people still lived in their homes until they died. They didn't go to nursing homes. So you could see that they would need help with their lawn or whatever. I really enjoyed just being a good boy. And then as you get older, and then you have some power, like to tell a story with film or camera, with words, then you don't change suddenly. Those your instincts remain the same. My instincts were always to connect with a person and see if I couldn't find some kind gesture that they would appreciate and remember me. I don't know.
Who is that woman?
The first thing I ever did in entertainment, really, with film, was a movie about a Minnesota man named Bill, who you may have looked this up. It was my first movie. Starred Mickey Rooney, who played Bill, and in fact, I brought a picture to my desk here so you can see. Where is it?
Yes. You can see. There we go. Wow.
A young me and Bill. Bill was institutionalized for 44 years in Faribault. Faribault had the mental institution. It was my introduction into a world where I'd never really ventured personally into this world of aloneness and vulnerability was through this friendship that I developed with Bill. And
You started this movie and this blind priest walking aimlessly, and he was saying this village is cursed by no love. Nobody loves it. It's a village void of love. And when people think of village, they think a little bit differently. But he says something. I can bury a man, but I cannot bury his sin.
the original sin in Smitten was changed because I had shot a beautiful black and white opening that goes back into past history. And I had these lovely young actors in costume, and this priest was narrating more of this. And we shot the film, edited it, and I felt like this movie is taking too long to get going. And so I actually condensed the whole course down into something that had more to do with an environmental mistake that the village had made. Long ago, at the end, you'll see the woman looking out into the mountains, and she said, We used to have trees on these mountains called sarbolai. We called them sarbolai. They were a kind of cedar tree. We love these trees, but we cut them all down. We loved them so much we used them all up. They were gone. Before we knew it, we'd lost the thing we loved. And that was the day when we realized, that it's easy to lose the thing you love. And from thereon came this sort of depression and the curse and the loss of love. And now no one gets married. You notice there's no children anywhere in this village. That's because I always thought if there's a sequel, then we're going to populate this village. My favorite scenes in the movie are the ones with no dialogue, where you just see the thing happen. The scene where the fellows are chopping wood, and Bambo comes up and wants to be a part of it, but he has no axe, so he just starts breaking sticks over his. It's very funny to me.
It's not just the funny. I mean, it brings you in because it reminds you of something you've done a long time growing up. Talking about a village or a film about love, mobsters, and all of that, but there is no making love and there is no violence. There is no sex. It's just a sweet story. It's like somebody sitting in the old days and just telling a story.
I didn't want to taint it with being overly catering to prurient sex. I mean, Madalena would have gladly had a much lower cut thing with her boobs up more and everything. She would have done it for me, but I said, no, we don't want this. Your beauty should be behind a veil, you know, but the comedy is what I want to let out. And so we spend as much time with the homeliest woman and her love and her yearning as we do with the most beautiful woman, because love is love.
Chris, when he went and bought a lot of things to buy her love, it did not work out. It would not work in this lovely town.
My father was a very successful businessman, and he wanted me to join his company, and he asked me once, he only asked once, would you like to join the firm after college? And I said, he did this at the Thanksgiving table with the whole family assembled, and I felt very much on the spot. But I knew that business was not going to be my business, that it was going to be something else.
I don't know how long it will take you, about 5-6 weeks living in this village, living with the people, local and hire local, working with local. Any story wasn't in a film that is memorable, something happened, something you can share it with us?
Sure. Well, there is a church that we built for the movie in this village. They had their own church, but it was too small to film in. So we found a large old barn. When I say we, I meant my production crew. And we transformed the front of the barn into a church. And in the interior barn, we built the altar and the pews and everything. It's beautiful. Right next to our shooting area, though, was where they milked the cows twice a day. And when we were shooting there once, in the middle of a very important scene, the wedding scene, if you will, at the end, Rosalea and Tyler are looking into each other's eyes. All of a sudden, we hear, and Tyler said to Marilyn, he said, "Was that you?" And she said, "No, I think it was you." And of course, we had to shut everything down, and we just laughed, and we waited for the cows to be milked.
Smitten is a sweet film here in an international film festival. It's a film about love cleansing. It's just kind of cleanse people's ideas about what love is all about. People are tired of love, the old tired story. This is a cleansing love message to all loves that we heard about it. Barry Morrow, the director of Smitten, is a sweet, wonderful film coming to International Film Festival here in the Twin Cities on Friday the 27th at 7:15. Go see it. So much, Barry. Looking forward to see you on Friday when you come here for the premiere. Thank you.